the last video, I mentioned that the outer garment wasn't entirely completed yet, but I could only go so far because I was missing supplies. Since then, the stores have opened again and the supplies have been purchased. All the satin stitching have been completed and looks amazing, and now the garment can be finished. One thing I noticed while studying the costume was this tooth thing on the sleeve. At first I thought it was just for aesthetics, because when you look at every other character, the costumes are needlessly complicated. But then when I was studying the trim on the sleeve, I noticed that his outer sleeves are cinched. Turns out, the tooth feature is actually functional. Which makes sense, he's wearing his traveling clothes and would want to shorten his sleeves when it got too hot. And he is wearing corduroy, so of course he'd get warm. I couldn't find those teeth buttons without having to buy the other side of the frog clasp, so I found these wooden buttons instead. I also got these dark eyelets and some cording. This is how I do eyelets. Whether it's correct or not, it's a method that works for me. Mark out where you want the eyelet. Poke a hole where you want your eyelet to go. Odds are it won't be large enough for the eyelet to fit through, so I carefully clip it just to make it a little bit larger. These are two-part eyelets. Poke the longer one through the hole and make sure it sticks through completely. Place the larger eyelet around the longer bit, and then take the tool supplied with the eyelets and hit it with a hammer. In the past, I found regular hammers too much and will break and distort the eyelets, so I use a scrapbooking hammer. Always use something really hard underneath your eyelet hammering. Otherwise, you will damage whatever's underneath. Then I thread the cord through and tied it. The inner top went together very similar to the outer garment, though I didn't care if it had the seam on the front or not, and I had to maximize the amount of fabric used since the sleeves were larger than the pattern took into account. I had just enough. I couldn't find my fusible interfacing for the collar, so I used 100% cotton to act as a sew-in interfacing. I basted the interfacing on the sides, then folded the collar in half, ironed it, and serged the raw edge. The inner garment fabric is a viscose rayon flaxen blend. Because the corduroy of the main garment was going to be very warm, therefore the inner garment should be as breathable and natural as possible. One issue I ran into was, since the undergarment was going to need to be washable, and it would be washed a lot, the decorative trim on it would also be washed a lot and probably look bad after a while. So a solution I came up with was, make the trim removable for washing. I cut some Velcro strips in half and sewed one half onto the trim. The other half I sewed onto the collar, making sure that the loop side goes on the clothing for easier washing. Also through observation, there's some sleeve cinching on the inner garment as well.